we're going to do a quick overview of how TEF forms work so that you guys can have it to start working on your own in the chapter content. Okay, so the easiest ones, as usual, are the root verbs. Root verbs are just simple, okay? So the way you convert a root verb to TEF form is you just drop the final root from the dictionary form and add te in its place. So for example, taberu changes to tabete. Tabete, like that. Okay. Miru would change to mite. Let's see, another dictionary from Okiru. I'm not doing the kanji for that one since it's not one we've covered officially. So Okiru, okite, right? Neru changes to nete. Okay, so you see how the pattern works, right? That's a nice, easy pattern to get because it's just drop ru, add te in its place, right? Okay, TEF form has several different purposes. The easiest one to understand is you've heard phrases with te kudasai before already. You just didn't know that's what you were listening to. So it's basically saying, please do this verb. So, tabete kudasai, please eat this. You know, okite kudasai, please wake up. Nete kudasai, please sleep. You know, mite kudasai, please look. Okay, make sense? Okay, so let's go to, let's see, the irregulars are also pretty simple, partly just because there are only two of them, right? So, kuru changes to shite, and suru changes to shite. So you could think of them as coming more off of the mas form. Because if you look at it, kimas, just drop the mas, add te, right? Shimas, drop the mas, add te, right? So that's a way to think about making the dictionary forms, making the TEF forms rather of irregular verbs. Okay, and of course the meaning still holds. So, kite kudasai, please come. Shite kudasai, please do. Benkyou shite kudasai, please study. Okay, like that. Okay, so where it starts to get a little bit more complicated is the u verbs actually divide into several categories in order to convert to TEF forms. Okay, so let's first name the categories and then talk about the rules for each one. So, u, su, ru is the name of one category. Okay, mu, bu, nu is the name of another category. Okay, su, bu, mu, nu. Ku and gu sometimes get separated out, but the rule they follow basically is the same, so I group them because it makes for one less category to memorize, and I think it's just easier to learn them as a set. Su is another category, and then we have one special case, one exception, which we'll talk about separately. And actually, let me just go ahead and introduce that one first. Our exception is iku. You remember iku as in to go. Iku does not follow the rule for the kubus, even though it ends in ku. It's an exception, and iku changes to ite, like that. If you're spelling it out, it looks like that. Okay, so it's spelled ite. If you want to write it with kanji, it looks like that. Okay? So that's iku ite, and it's an exception, so I wrote it in a different color, so you've got a visual reminder here. Okay? So looking at utsuru, the utsuru conversion, any u verb that ends in either u or tsu or ru They all follow the same rule, and that is that you drop that final syllable, whatever that is, and replace it with small tsu te. So, for example, au, au changes to atte. Okay, kau, yeah, katte. Matsu, yeah, matsu changes to matte. Toru, yeah, totte. Okay, so you see examples of all three, utsu and ru, right? And matsu, matte is one you've probably heard before. Matte kudasai. Chotto matte kudasai. Right? Please wait a second. Chotto matte is like, please wait a little bit. Matte kudasai, please wait. Chotto matte kudasai is please wait a little bit. You know, so kudasai is like a please, right? If you're using a phrase where please could be used but it's being dropped, that's casual. So like, chotto matte is like, wait a sec. Chotto matte kudasai, please wait a sec. Make sense? Okay, so does that clarify that one a little bit? And this chapter is actually going to introduce several other uses of te forms besides te kudasai. But te kudasai is the first one they introduced because it's the easiest to understand. It's the one that if you listen to any Japanese films or movies at all, you've heard before. Okay, so the utsuru category, they all, utsu or ru changes to small tsu te. Okay, and these are all u verbs, and they all end in one of these sounds. That's how the categories are named. They're named after the syllables that end the words that go in that category. Okay, so anything that ends in u, tsu, or ru goes in the utsuru category, and they all convert to a small tsu te. And since there's a tsu in the name of the category, that kind of is a bit of a mnemonic for what you convert to. Because none of the others use small tsu te except for our exception, itte. Okay? Mubu nu means words that end with mubu or nu. So that would be, for example, yomu and nomu. And asobu is a new vocabulary word that ends with bu. Okay, and shinu is a new vocabulary word that ends with nu. Okay, so yomu would convert to yonde. Okay, so all of these convert to nde, and the way to remember that is mubu nu are all sort of nasal sounds, and so is n, right? It's a nasal, so nde. Make sense? So yomu changes to yonde, nomu to nonde, asobu, hai, asonde, shinu, shinde. Okay? So again, if you're doing the kudasai, yonde kudasai would be please read. Nonde kudasai, please drink. Asonde kudasai, please play, yeah? Shinde kudasai sounds really rude. Don't use that one. It's just example. For example purposes only.
It's weird. In Rosetta Stone, they covered tapeworm first.
Yeah.
Like,
I think probably just because it's so commonly used. But in terms of conjugation, if you're actually trying to learn how to conjugate verbs, not just memorize some conjugated verbs, it's more complex to understand how to conjugate te forms than it is some of the other forms, which is why this book teaches other things first. And te form also forms a foundation for some other things that we can do that are also considered to be more advanced skills. So, you know, Rosetta Stone is working from the premise of, even though you're an adult, you can learn it like a child would learn their native language, which is just total immersion, no explanation, no grammar at all, just listen and get a context and memorize. The problem with that theory, for me at least, is that you're not actually in an immersion environment, so it's harder to learn it that way, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, you have to motivate and use it.
Yeah,
I like a frame.
yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, Kugu, I want to get through this quick so that Ellie can get to her other class. So ku and gu both change to ite. The difference being that if there's no 10-10, there's no 10-10 here. If there's a 10-10 here, like in gu, then it transfers. Now, which letter can it transfer onto? De, right? It cannot transfer to the E. There's no such thing as an E with a 10-10, right? So, where can it possibly go? Only onto the te to make de, right? So that's a way to understand why ku endings become ite and gu endings become ide. Okay? So like oyogu, hi, hi, oyogu changes to oyoide, and kaku changes to kaite, and kiku, kiite. So, and this is one of those where people are like, what, really? Yes, really. Kiku changes to kiite. Yeah, you may remember way back at the beginning of level 1, we might have talked about kite as a pair, an example of long vowel, short vowel, and small tsu, right? Pronunciations kite, kite, kite. Now we know what all three of these are. Kite, please listen. Kite, please come. Kite can either be stamp, that we just talked about, right, in the last chapter. It could also be the utsuru verb, kiru, to cut.
Oh, yeah.
It all depends on the kanji, right?
It's a completely different kanji.
Right, it all depends on the kanji that you
Right, yeah. There are 3 different kanji for the 3 different verbs. Yeah. So, but all 3 verbs exist. So, kiru, to cut, is kitte. Kuru, to come, kite. Kiku, to listen, kiite. So, pronunciation-wise, those are important. Okay, su, our example of that for now is hanasu, to speak. And su just changes to shite. So, hanasu changes to hanashite. So, Nihongo o hanashite kudasai. Please speak Japanese, like that. Okay, and I know you have to go. So, does that answer enough of your questions for you to get a start on lesson 6 stuff? Okay, so you guys can start working on lesson 6 on your own, and on Tuesday of next week we will do the first several Menshu exercises, however much we get to. Does it work for you 3 to just kind of study your vocab on your own and focus just on grammar practice when we come in here?
Yeah, grammar and speaking.
Grammar and speaking, yeah. Okay? So that's what we'll do. So you guys study on your own time with the vocab and get, as we've been doing, do the listening available practices together or on your own, and in class we'll do the ones that don't have a listening